Hi, welcome to the EBNT bite-sized training. This is the first of the series, quick start instructions to get you going using the tool. Just a quick explainer, this is a simplified run-through. Should you use the tool for practical projects, full tool completion should be completed having first read the EBN principles document and be delivered alongside the user guide. This video is intended to help users quickly understand the key steps in the process before engaging with the fuller documentation. So what we'll cover is the basics of how to go through and complete a basic assessment with a very simple example. So to do this, you'll need to have a completed biodiversity metric assessment. It's taken from the statutory biodiversity metric of similar surveys. You'll need to have some knowledge of the site in question, its associated boundaries, both in terms of its map boundaries and the nature of any linear features such as hedgerows that may surround it. You need to download copies of the EBN tool ready for data entry. And you should also download copies of the user guide and data catalog for reference. So to get started, the first thing you need to do is download a copy of the tool. Easiest way to do this is simply Google JPO38 Environmental Benefits from Nature tool. This will take you to the Natural England Access to Evidence website and the EBN landing page. You then need to download to your computer a copy of the tool. We encourage you to try first the full version of the tool, the JPO38 first link. However, if having done this, you're seeing messages from your IT system providing warnings around macros and won't allow you to enter data, please use the macro disabled version. So what we're going to do is just get started. If you've got the tool in front of you, when you go to the project details tab, and what you need to do is enter in the project name, locate the relevant landscape character assessment using the drop downs. We'll just do a walkthrough to show you this in a sec. Enter in the landscape diversity that's typical of the landscape according to the landscape character area assessment, landscape character assessment. That might take a little bit of time. You'll then enter in your UGF target if you have one. For many projects, this can be left blank. Enter in any service priorities for the area that you have in mind, and then enter in the results from the biodiversity metric. So in terms of what this looks like, if you've got the tool in front of you, you should see that if you go to the project details tab, it will look like this. You've got your information entered in up front. To locate the LCA statement with those drop downs just below the main text entries, and you can see you can click on the hyperlink that's provided. It might take a little bit of time if it's a large file like here, and what that will do is load up the document in question, which will be there with you as a companion piece as you're going through, and you'll use that to locate the area in question, and then what you need to do is form an assessment based around the landscape diversity. If you hover over that box, you can see a yellow box that turned up that has some detail about how to assess complexity. I mentioned also about entering in priorities. That's what you saw in the box above. Just enter in yes if it's a service priority, and then also putting in your justification as to why those priorities were chosen. So here you can see that just typing in project priorities are outlined in the attached document. If you're within an LRS and there are additional benefits being sought, that's the sort of thing that you could reference in there, or any particular bits of a local plan. Below you can see the box for entering in your statutory biodiversity metric outputs. That's just there to provide some assurance for anyone looking at this about whether biodiversity net gain has been achieved and whether the biodiversity metric has been followed before. Here, because this isn't a full assessment, we're not going to enter in the details just in the interest of time. Okay, second step is we're going to go through and enter the habitat information, which we'd expect to be taken from the biodiversity metric. So if you have the biodiversity metric ready in front of you, what we're going to do is take the habitat information from the relevant tabs, the statutory biodiversity metric. What you need to do is take care to make sure you're taking the data from the right tab to match with the correct bit of the EBNT. I would encourage you to refer to the EBN user guide there, which has a helpful table to help you through that. And then what you need to do is copy and paste that data and then manually record for the post-intervention data entry the type of change, whether it's enhance or create. Enter in if any of the habitats have been created in advance. The assumption is here that they haven't, that this is 0. And then you also need to enter in some new information about what the starting point for any created habitat is. Here we assume bare ground, but if, for example, soil's been removed or a habitat's been created on grass, then that provides a slightly different starting point for the calculations. And then we also require you to enter in width of the any linear features which have been entered, because the biodiversity metric only requires a length. So we're going to just take you through how to do that. And then also, just as a final point, just go through and check that everything's been entered correctly and no boxes are showing in red, because that will prevent you getting results. So just before we go through the worked example, this is the page you should be looking at. So pages 27 and 28, the user guide, highlight the relationship between the tabs in the statutory biodiversity metric and the data entry within the EBNT. Okay, now we're just going to go through walked example. Hopefully you're familiar with the statutory biodiversity metric. If you open up the menu there, we're going to go to the on-site baseline and click on the area habitats. Here we're going to take cereal crops and we are going to paste that into the corresponding baseline tab of the EBNT. We've copied across the habitat. We're going to put the area in there too. And this is taken from the on-site baseline. So we enter that in as on-site. Okay, we're now going to enter in on-site hedgerow baseline. So we take the habitat here, which is species-rich native hedgerow with trees. Again, this is taking the on-site tab. We enter in on-site. We put the length in, but note that you only get the length area. So you follow the guidance in that yellow box there, providing how to estimate width. If you don't have a value here, we put it in as 2 meters, and that completes the baseline section. We're now going to go to the on-site post-development section, and we're going to enter in habitat created. So we're going to copy across those habitats. These are all on-site creations. We enter them in all on-site. We're going to copy across, we're going to enter that in as created. So the type of change is create because it's taken to the create tab. And the starting habitat here is bare ground. So we're working with the default there. That's bare ground. There's information about the other subcategories in the data catalog. And we're just copying and pasting the area in there. So pretty straightforward. Now we're also going to go back, check that there's no habitat enhancement, and then we're just going to see if there are any retained habitats. So retained habitats, if you're keeping some of the habitat, for example, here they're retaining species-rich hedgerows, you need to take the length retained and enter that into the post-intervention work tab, because that's going to be part of the area. If you haven't done that, you'll get a warning come up to let you know that the area is short, and that will hopefully prompt you to go to do this. So again, it's on site. You're putting that habitat in, again, same length and width, but this time you're entering it in as retain. So quite straightforward when you get used to this. It's the same for linear habitats as it is for the area habitat. So if you had an area habitat that was being retained, it would be just to the right on that baseline habitat tab. So we've got the habitat data into the tool. What we now need to do is enter in the contextual data. This is taken, because it's a small and simple site, from the Green Infrastructure data portal. So this is Natural England's Green Infrastructure site. It has a mapping portal within it. This has an EBN search, which allows you to draw a boundary around your site, collect a custom output designed, ready to put into the EBN tool. And then what you need to do is copy that and put it into the tool in the next step. So here you start off, we're going to put postcode in. This completely fictitious example. We put in the postcode. Zoom in. We're going to draw a polygon. That fills a series of different results. You can see each of these corresponding to those basic columns on the right-hand side of the habitat data. Each one, the blue boxes, providing the entries that you need. Here, because it's very small, we're not seeing multiple catchments, different grades of agricultural land. We've got single entries here. So we simply copy that, ready to be pasted in the next step in the tool. So this fourth step, very simple, is we're just going to paste the information that was copied from the mapping website into the tool. So what you need to do is go to your baseline tab, find the first of those contextual modifiers, agricultural land class, the top corner there, so the top row with habitat data in there, or say NK. What you need to do is click on that, go to paste special, and then if you're using the macro version, and in the case of this where you haven't got multiple different catchments or grades of agricultural land class that differ across the site, you can use the autofill button, which will copy all of that across from the baseline post-intervention tabs. So very quickly, just to show you what that looks like, if you go into the tool, you go to that top tab, you go to paste special, and here you can see it's entered in all the data for that first row. Then there's an autofill button at the top, which basically copies that data from the first row into, I think it's 30 cells underneath, and puts that into the baseline tab. It'll only do this once, but if you've got the same, it's all on site, you're going to be the same grade of agricultural land, same flood risk zone, same population density. This can save a bit of time. You're then ready to do some manual checks. So the tool itself is now largely complete. It's used open government license data to complete the cells, but there are 2 columns which will require some additional input. One is soil drainage. That data is not open government license, although some of it is available on Magic for certain users. And there's landscape diversity, which can't be assessed using a simple mapped data set. So to do this, you go, for both cases, you should use the EBN data catalog, put in soil drainage, and you can see there's detailed instructions there about how to get the data. And I mentioned the Magic website. You can see you can go to Magic. This is another government website. If you go look under landscapes, geology and soils, tick on soilscape, and you can see that has a simple colored map, and you can check which of the different soil types is relevant to the area, and then that has to read across into the tool. The final bit you need to fill in is landscape diversity. So this doesn't relate to an individual data set and requires a degree of judgment. So in order to fill this in, you need to pull up landscape diversity from the EBN data catalog in the same way I just showed you for soil drainage. And following the instruction and definitions, you can see on the bottom, it's form a view about what the landscape diversity was prior to the proposed project change, which in many cases will be similar to that that's typical of a landscape. It's good condition. And then you have to enter in what the landscape diversity will be post-intervention using the different categories provided there, all the way from uniform to simple, diverse, and complex. So a judgment call needs to be made in accordance with those definitions and the guidance. That needs to be replicated for every single row. So it'll be the same for all rows within each column, baseline and post-intervention. So we just look at what that looks like here, we've had a look at the maps. We're putting this down as slightly impeded drainage on the basis of the soil types in question. For the baseline, we're saying that this is simple in terms of the landscape diversity, so arable fields with hedgerows. We've now gone to post-intervention. We're saying this is the same. The geology hasn't changed. We're not expecting to see changes in terms of compaction. Saying that this is the same. It's a small and simple site. This isn't going to have a material impact on landscape diversity as a whole. So now very much the moment of truth. What we're going to try and do is go through and check the results. So if we've entered in all the data correctly, we should see a basic assessment achieved as indicated by the box on top of the main results table, without looking to consider the results, paying particular attention to those services which are going down. Those which have been highlighted, making sure they're not going down, and we're going to consider some of the gains and losses. So very quickly, if we look here, you can see a basic level has indeed been achieved. In terms of the picture of change here, at the moment it's looking quite negative because we put in lots of sealed surface. We might want to think about changing that if we can, to address priorities, but actually in terms of the two services in question that were highlighted, they're both looking like they will improve over time. Also, just to see that this works, you can see I've just gone back and changed one of the data categories to NK. It's now showing level achieved as none. So that underlining the relationship between the two, and if you look underneath the table, you can provide further indication about where the gaps are. On the right hand side, you can see there's interpretation there. So if some of the other services were declining that you thought were important, or you're looking to increase multi-functionality on the site, this will give indications on there. So if we click on the expand, for example, it might say reduce areas of sealed surface to increase water supply, for example. So you can see how this works. Very much starter, but hopefully this is enough to get you going. This is the first of a series of bite-sized videos made available to support users. These can be found under the Become a Super User section of the EBNT page on the Green Infrastructure website. Should you experience any difficulties as a user that are not covered by the user guide, please contact the EBN email address ebn@naturalengland.org.uk for further assistance.